when I first started and my last couple of years of school, I can remember it was a severe drought, the early 80s. So probably it wasn't the best era on the orchard. In the mid to late 80s, we had those 2 bad hailstorms that just devastated the district. But we seem to take 1 foot forward and 2 steps back a lot of the times. You have one good year and you think, oh yeah, we'll try and back it up with another year, but it just doesn't seem to happen.
I think since I've arrived it's probably been quite tough. They haven't had a good year in the 13 years that I've been here. We've had lots of hailstorms and of course rain, and I think I can only remember one decent cherry crop in that time.
Well, if you're going to be a cherry grower, you've got to be philosophical about it, because you're not going to get you're rather silly if you think you're going to get a crop every year. Cherries are entirely different sort of crop to apples. Apples are much more predictable, but by the same token, cherries are more profitable when you do get a good crop. So it's it's a bit of a roller coaster with cherries. You go with it every year in the hope that you're going to get a really good year. If you don't get the good year, then you've got to be philosophical about it and get on and do something else for a few months, and then come back to it the next year and hope you get the good year the next year. So you might only get one. Well, our last 5 years with cherries is we've had 1 really bumper crop, we've had 2 ordinary crops, we've had 1 complete failure, and well, this year really was just a no crop, because we had terrible weather during the pollination period, and so we didn't have cherries on the trees, and so we really didn't have a problem with rain splitting or anything like that. But at the same time, the trees have rested for a whole year now, and we would expect to have probably potential for a massive crop next year.
Yeah, I mean, it's like most farmers, we face an enormous amount of challenges, not only from Mother Nature, but from people in, in government positions, wanting to charge for water on our own properties, and also imports which are coming in. I guess that's some of our competition, but it may be some things we've got to worry about, because they could bring in new diseases like fire blight, and that will be a huge issue for our industry, because there's no such chemicals that can control it. Once it's in for good. Oh well, I mean, we've had some terrible times where we've been totally wiped out by hail, and finding it difficult to keep our staff going, but we managed to get through that.
Probably the worst one I remember when I wasn't with Bert at the time, but we got this hailstorm that just wiped us out in a whole 5 minutes, and he rang up and he was literally crying on the phone. So it was that was the point that I really remember, that it was a really hard time for him, and to get through that whole year, dragging the feet.
We had a very bad year in 1986. It wasn't only us; it was the whole district. About the 20th of January, 21st, we had this tremendous hailstorm. The trees were practically shredded, and cracks in the branches, smashed fruit all over the ground. And I actually picked all the fruit myself that year. We only got 80 bins, and it was all juice. We not only had that storm, we had other hailstorms as well. But prior to that was the 1982 drought, 1982-83 drought, which was, well, probably the worst drought in my lifetime. And we were just investing in irrigation, and we had to get a licence to pump water from Summer Hill Creek. That was all costly, and we were going okay after that until that 1986 hailstorm. That's half the battle of being an orchard, is growing an apple or a cherry or whatever that you can be proud of. But when you see it all smashed on the ground, it's very disheartening. But I think most orchardists just got to they know something's going to happen. You're going to get a bad, nature is going to do to your blow, and you just have to get up and get on with it.
You see the disappointment that the thing about Piercy is that his glass is half full all the time, whereas mine's the half empty, and I'm the one who goes into a spiral. So I guess that's why we get on so well, do we? But no, Piercy always sees the positives in it, and and it's not that it's just next year, is that he can, so we can ride through these sort of, the ups and downs and stuff like that.
But that dust storm, which, you think, how often does that happen? Once in 100 years. What it did was created a rough finish on the skin of the fruit. So the fruit was fine, it's fantastic, actually really good eating quality, but it just looked rough and russety. So consequently, our pack out, which is the amount of fruit that, from what we pick, the portion that we can market, that's your pack out, was very, very low. So that really hurts you financially. I was talking to someone about that, and I said, "Oh, this bloody 1 in 100 year dust storm." And they looked at me and said, "Piercy, there's always something that's once in 100 years, except it's every year," which is probably right. But so yeah, you have to be optimistic.